I'm going to really be telling a story. This is a case study about my company and how we tried to build influence online. When you're at a startup, maybe many of you are at startups, it's very difficult to have any influence, to be a thought leader in your industry. Typically, you have a long way to go until you get someone in your company who's recognized as a thought leader or an expert. So we had some unique problems specific to our industry that made it even more difficult for us to become thought leaders in our industry. So I'm going to tell you a little story about how we did it. It's not any sort of recipe for anyone else. It's just, I think, a way to help understand that anyone can do this. Basically, how do you build influence online? How do you influence other users to come to your site, to follow you, to read what you write? It's not easy. Basically, this is the story about how one B2B startup in a very, very niche area, B2B area, with a product that was only 2 weeks old, took home our industry's biggest award. Sort of the American Idol of our industry. And I'll tell you a little bit about how we did that. Basically, we are a company called Certo. We are in the disaster recovery space. We do disaster recovery for enormous data centers. It's not something that the average person cares about at all. It's not something that the average person ever thinks about. Even after a disaster, this is something very, very niche. And even within that industry, we only work with what's called virtualized data centers, so a subset of the data center industry. And a subset of the virtualized data center industry, we only work with one brand of virtualized data center called VMware. Anyone here from VMware, by the way? Yay, okay, nice to meet you. So we only work with a very, very specific type of company. So the question is, how then do we create any sort of influence? We're such a niche market. We have a great product in a very, very niche market. In addition to that, we have some other hurdles. We want to win this award. We want to make some noise at a big industry conference. The biggest industry conference of the year is called VMworld. It's run by a company called VMware. And our product wasn't available, was not GA into the marketplace until 2 weeks before the conference started. So we basically had to go from zero, we were in stealth mode, to real, we had to go from zero to real, make some noise in 2 weeks' time. So what did we do? We started by creating an influencer map. Who is important in our industry? It takes a lot of time. It's important for someone in the company to spend an entire week only looking at who the influencers are in your company. This, you can see, is just a screenshot of a Prezi presentation. Any of you know Prezi? You work with Prezi? So basically what I did is I created a Prezi of the influencers in our industry, how they're connected, how they know each other, what they do together, where they go online and what they do, and I presented it to the people who were going to be at the trade show that we're going to. I wanted them to go out and meet these people, look for these people, talk to these people online, offline, wherever they could, at meetups, at sessions, at the bar after the show. So I created this influencer map. And then I told them a few simple rules. The number one rule, I think, in marketing is to go back to high school. Remember how clicks work. Remember how people interact. Marketing is not really that much different than high school, right? You've got the geeks with the geeks. You've got the cheerleaders with the cheerleaders. You've got the stoners with the stoners. And people, it's very hard to break in. If you're not a stoner, it's hard to break into that group. And yet you're trying to sell a product. You've got to get to the stoners somehow. You need the stoners to buy your product. So how do you do it? How do you penetrate those clicks? The way that you do it is by building up your own influence online. Basically, when creating this map, I tried to give an understanding to the people in my company of who goes with who, wearing what, with who, to all of the different events that would be happening that week at VMworld. And basically, we started with a few simple things. We reached out particularly to bloggers. Bloggers are great if you have a niche product because you can be sure that there is someone writing about your niche industry in the blogosphere. And actually, there are many people writing about our unique niche product and niche industry in the blogosphere. Traditional media is not that relevant to my company at all. There's nobody from Forbes who's really going to be too interested in virtualizing data centers on VMware. But there are many, many bloggers who do this every day. They write about this every day. Then Twitter and Facebook. You find all kinds of interesting things happening on Twitter and Facebook. These guys are friends with each other. They go to the same shows. They meet up with each other at those shows. They're having parties and drinks at those shows. So I tried to follow what they were doing and what they were saying to each other on Twitter. Who's going to be at VBeers? That's the big, the sort of groups that they do. They have these, evenings out that they call V-Beers. Who's going to be there? How many people that I'm trying to get to on my influencer map are going to be at the V-Beers? And then very simple things, LinkedIn community groups and forums and all of that. And what did I do? I mostly just emailed them. Hey, we're going to be at V-Beers also. We'd like to meet you. We read your blog. We follow you. We're big fans. I tried to be as unvendor as I possibly could. Just saying, hey, we want to get to know you, we want to meet you. So basically, how did I do it? I have a few rules that I taught the people in my company for how I work in the world of social, and I think it's a good roadmap. It's certainly not the only roadmap. The first, just one thing, I want to start with the guy who's saying hot stuff, right? The bottom line is we all work at companies. We're trying to sell stuff to people. Right? That's the bottom line. But you can't only sell, right? It's just like in a networking event. You can't just walk up to someone and say, buy my product. So you have to take a step back and say, okay, well, how would I be able then to do this? So in the world of social, there are a few simple ways, I think, to do that. First of all, be yourself. Don't pretend that you're behind a company wall or a corporate wall. Just let people know this is a corporate account and it's run by me and I'm a real person. I think it really helps to open the door. It's not you, it's not your company talking to someone, it's a real person. The second is to show some love. You have to tweet things, you have to promote things that other people are writing. You have to say, hey, great article to someone else for them to then look at your articles. It has to work both ways. The third is to share things. You have to be sharing the things that you put out and making sure that you share things other people put out. Following Fridays and all of those kind of things are really important in terms of building a community. And the last thing, and it's really, really important, is don't do this in a vacuum. You need to get other people in your own company to be working with you on social. It can't be one person in a company that's the social media person. Everybody is a social being. You have to talk to other people in your company and get them on board on your team, and that's how it worked for us. Then, I love this slide. Sorry, but I love this slide. Because what I talk about when I talk to my company about what I do is that their traditional marketing efforts support my online social efforts. And they laugh at me, of course, because they think that social supports their efforts. But I actually think it's the other way. I think the goal is, right, to use all of the things that traditional marketing people use to gain influence. And that ultimately is back in my camp, right? PPC, SEO campaigns, PR, award submissions. You have to do all the basic things to continue to build influence. You can't only be on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. You have to do all those things. You have to show up at the trade show to then meet all of the people that you came there to meet. All of those things still have to happen. So, one example that I like to talk about how we did this, the matching of traditional marketing and social marketing, is with a small SEO project that we did. I saw people were coming to our site, particularly one blogger who is also now a user of our software. Came to our site. He started from a Google search for replication over WAN. We do replication. That's part of the disaster recovery industry. We do replication. And he started on a search for replication over WAN. He ended up, I don't know how, on our blog. There's not too much on our blog about networking and replication and how the two work together. So what did I do? I wrote a blog post. I talked to the people in my company that also work on content. We wrote a blog post about replication over WAN. And we we now appear, when I wrote this, we were in position number 8 for replication overwhelmed, but now we're in position number 5. So we wrote this blog post, and now we appear first page organic search results for this. And now I have something to go back to my community with, the forums, the LinkedIn groups, the Twitter, and I have something to talk to these people about that they're talking about. I have an opinion now about networking and replication. So I can then use that post to interest people in the community to come to my site and hear what I have to say about it. I'm not a thought leader yet. In my company, we're not thought leaders yet in this industry, but we have an opinion at least. And so we used traditional content marketing to try to draw people in a social way. And then, of course, we went to measure. So we did, one of the things that we did is a blogger roadshow. We talked to a whole bunch of bloggers in our industry, all of whom have very small blogs, but actually hold a lot of influence. And then we looked at the results. It's really, really important. Other people spoke about this today, to measure the results, make sure that there's real value in doing the social stuff. And we saw, you see all the red circles are the blogs that posted about us after the Blogger Roadshow. So you see the middle, the red, is average time on site. Actually, I'm sorry, it's actually average number of pages viewed on site. And all of these blogs, with the exception of one, brought more people spent longer time on our site from those blog posts than the average person, than people who come from Twitter or Facebook or mobile or traditional PR or some other communities. So it was actually, we could go back to my boss and say, this is effective, it works. Once we do a Blogger Roadshow, people write about us. Once they write about us, people come to the site, and they're relevant people on the site because they spend more time on our site than traditional, than people who come from other sources. And then, what do we do? With that influence, it ended up that we talked to all these bloggers, we met all these people. It ends up that many of the people that we met and we talked to were on the panel that voted us Best of Show. So we won Best of Show at VMworld 2011. A lot of it is luck, no question, but a lot of it was hard work that we did to try to make sure that the influencers at the show would know who we are. And then the final piece, start over again. You've got to get to your next group of influencers. You've got to make the map deeper. Who goes with who? Now those people who have written about you and are in your circle, how can they introduce you to other people in your circle? And that's it. Thank you.